And today, I'm going to walk you through 5 core ingredients that will help you build more trust in your community. Trust builder number 1 is vulnerability. In 2010, Brené Brown, one of my favourite authors, she goes on to say that vulnerability is the core of shame and the fear and our struggle of worthiness, but it's also the birthplace for joy, of creativity, of belonging and love. Trust isn't built through big gestures, okay? It's built through micro moments. The tone of your greeting, the clarity of your recommendations and the way that you connect even when you feel tired. Be the chiropractor that your community can count on, not because you're perfect, but because you're real, you're present, and you keep showing up. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of an on-the-road version. There'll be a few more of these in the next month of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. I'm currently on the western coast of Western Australia at a place called Coral Bay. It's right on the Ningaloo Reef, National Heritage, one of those places that is nothing shy of drop dead gorgeous. I spent yesterday swimming with whale sharks. And so before you think sharks, these are plankton eating. They're incredibly gentle, but they're as big as a whale. But they're kind of like sharks in that they don't need to come back up to they've got gills. So they don't need to come back up to breathe. And so I had 4 or 5 separate occasions of being within kind of 1 or 2 meters of this most majestic beast. It was nothing short of awe-inspiring. As we've continued our journey kind of down south in the coast here a little bit, it's getting a little chillier. Mind you, I think it's about kind of 24 degrees here. I don't know why I've got my jacket on. I've been used to kind of 31, 32 degrees of recent, so it feels cold to me. But my Melbourne friends who are in the midst of winter at the moment will be chuckling all about that as well. So let's jump into today's episode and let me ask you a question. When was the last time that you instantly trusted somebody that you saw online? The truth is, it's incredibly rare. In a world where everyone now has become an expert, everyone's got a protocol, a podcast, a program, everyone's got a promise, we start to get more and more suspicious. And our patients, okay, they feel that too. We're living through what I refer to as a trust recession, and yet trust is the very thing that us building the practice that we want depends on. It's the bridge between curiosity and commitment. It's the bridge between maybe I'll try this and this is our family chiropractor. Trust is what turns an adjustment into a relationship. Trust is what turns a casual follower into a lifelong advocate. And the good news is, trust is not magic. Okay, it's not charisma. It's a skill. You can build it and you can certainly wreck it as well. We build it through small and often invisible decisions that we make each and every day. And today, I'm going to walk you through 5 core ingredients that will help you build more trust in your community. The kind of trust that gets people to open up, the kind of trust that gets families to stay under care, the kind of trust that grows your practice, not with gimmicks, but with grounded human interaction. Okay, we'll share some stories, some research, some real world examples of each of these. I'm going to start with a story from Brené Brown on vulnerability, and we'll end with self-esteem. We'll talk about imposter syndrome and how we can build confidence that really lasts. In the middle, we'll hit the sweet spot between what feels good and what actually works. So let's dive in, okay? Trust builder number 1 is vulnerability. In 2010, Brené Brown, one of my favourite authors, she was then an unknown researcher from the University of Houston. She was a professor from there as well, okay? She stood on that little red circular piece of carpet at a TEDx event in Houston. Her talk was about shame, not innovation, and certainly not about technology. It was all about shame. And if you've watched it, you'll know that she wasn't polished. She laughed nervously. She shared a story about her own breakdown, which she eventually referred to as a spiritual awakening. She confessed that her research had taken her somewhere that she didn't want to go, and that is vulnerability. Now, I know vulnerability, or she goes on to say that vulnerability is the core of shame and the fear and our struggle of worthiness, she says, okay? But it's also the birthplace for joy, okay, of creativity, of belonging and love. So there's this real double-edged sword that comes along with vulnerability. Now that talk, if you haven't watched it, you should go and watch it because it went viral. And I've watched it several times, and again, in preparing for today as well. There's now over 60 million views, 60 million people that have watched it as well. And they didn't show up and watch it. It didn't go viral because she was perfect. They showed up because she was real, okay? That's the paradox of vulnerability. The very thing that we often fear that will push people away is often what draws them closer. So we don't want to be vulnerable because we don't want to actually show who we are inside because we fear rejection. And yet that's what often brings people towards us. So for chiropractors, especially family chiropractors, this is your superpower because your community doesn't just want to know you. They want to know who you are. Okay, we're not just, if I'm going to bring my kids along to see you, if I want to have a lifelong relationship with you, it's not just good enough for me to know that you're a great chiropractor. I want a connection with you, and vulnerability helps you through that. Let me share with you sort of 3 to 5 different ways that you can use vulnerability to build trust. How do we use it tactically as well? And again, I use this word tactically carefully because if we're using it from a manipulation point of view, we're never going to get the full impact of vulnerability. So let's talk first of social media. And social media, one of the things that we should be doing is we should be sharing lessons, not just wins. So instead of always posting success stories, share a moment of growth. Where did you struggle? It might be something saying like, I used to think that I had to be the expert all the time. But the more that I lean into asking questions of my patients, the more connected I feel to my purpose and the better chiropractor I become. So here we are showing some vulnerability of here's what I thought I had to be. This shows reflection, not weakness. It humanizes you online. It makes you more relatable than other perfect chiropractors out there. We're not looking for perfect. We're looking for connection. We should be vulnerable in our report of findings. We should acknowledge the fear. So when a patient looks at you nervously and says something like, is this really safe for my baby? That's not our cue to get on the defensive. That's not our cue to our cue to try and, overwhelm them. It's this. We want to acknowledge it. That's a great question. When my son was little, I remember being hesitant too. And what helped me was to understand how gentle and specific chiropractic adjustments are. Let me show you what I mean. So part of what vulnerability does is acknowledges the realness of what somebody else is doing. It builds emotional safety. It increases the likelihood of follow through. It reframes, in this situation, the report of findings as a conversation. It's not a sales pitch as well. Of course, we should be using vulnerability with our staff. Again, if we want to build a culture, a winning culture, we need to admit when you're uncertain, okay? So leadership doesn't always require that we have the answer. It does require creating the space for good answers to emerge, though. So it might be saying something like this. Hey, I'm not 100% sure that the new flow that we've implemented is working as well as what it could. What are you noticing? I'd love your thoughts. This models humility. It builds psychological safety, invites collaboration. It's not just about compliance as well. If you're giving a talk or a workshop, instead of, starting off with how wonderful that you are, share your story. This is why we see great speakers sharing their hero's journey through their failures as well. In an email or a blog or, own a mistake, own a misstep. Trust deepens when you say, I got this wrong. Here's something that I learned along the way. It builds affinity. It positions you as a growing expert, okay? And it sets you apart from many of the transactional care providers. Too many health practitioners are thinking that they need to be right all the time, and this is not what we expect of our healthcare practitioners, certainly again. So some closing thoughts on all of this. Vulnerability is not about oversharing, okay? We can take it too far, and I've seen chiropractors get on there and cry for the sake of crying, okay? Again, manipulation never works, not just in chiropractic, but certainly in communication and relationship building as well, okay? Vulnerability is intentional honesty in the service of connection, and in a world where trust is rare, your willingness to be real will be one of your absolute greatest assets, okay? Trust builder number 2 is consistency. So in 2016, Bruce Springsteen walked on the stage at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. He was 66 years old. 3.5 hours later, without taking a single break, he played his final encore, okay? Drenched in sweat, grinning from ear to ear like a kid. No teleprompters, no backup vocals, and absolutely no excuses. Now, every night, if you've ever been to a Springsteen concert, okay, or if you've just heard about the legend, okay, this man doesn't just play shows, he pours himself into it. Again, every night, every city, same grit, same soul, same fire, okay? This is not a marketing gimmick from Bruce Springsteen. This is consistency, okay? And because of that, it builds trust. And it's the reason why people travel around the world. I've got a friend of mine here in Australia who's traveling all the way over to Italy to see him because his concerts are legendary because of the consistency. His fans don't show up hoping for a good show. They show up knowing that they're going to get one, okay? Inconsistency breeds doubt. Consistency builds trust. So where should we be looking at being consistent in chiropractic? Okay, so let me give you some examples again here. First is on social media. Imagine a mum is scrolling through your Instagram account. It's 10 p.m. on a Thursday night. She's been referred to you by a friend. She finds a reel where you're adjusting a baby and it clicks with her, okay? She taps through to your profile and she sees that your last post prior to that was 2 months ago. You might be brilliant, but in that moment she wonders, how serious is this person? Are they really an expert if they're not showing up? This happens not just on our social media, but it happens when I come and look at your website as well. And I can see that there hasn't been a blog post for 2 years and things haven't been updated. Or I look at your website and it looks so 2010. We need to make sure that we're constantly updating. Trust isn't just built by your content, it's built by showing up. Even if it's just once a week, we must have a rhythm with these things. The second spot where we want to build consistency is in our adjustments, okay? And I often refer to this as the Friday afternoon test. Your first adjustment on Monday morning is often easy. We're revitalized, we're energized, we're ready to get going. But how's the 250th adjustment on your Friday afternoon? They both deserve the same presence, the same reverence, and the same connection. Patients are not going to be counting how many adjustments that you're having, but they will feel it, okay, if you're not showing up with that same zest that you did for the first one, okay? This is where our reputation is earned, not just when you feel fresh, but when you feel tired as well, okay? With your recommendations, there needs to be consistency there. This is integrity versus approval. If your care recommendations shift based on what you think someone will accept, it chips away at your credibility. Yes, everybody is different, but if you stand for a subluxation-based lifetime family care, then you recommend that, okay? That's what we recommend always, every time, okay? This is your line in the sand. It's, again, some people, and in my practice there as well, not everybody took on my recommendations. Sometimes it took multiple times, but I had a mantra inside my mind that someone was a patient for life. Sometimes they were active and sometimes they were inactive. But regardless of, I always gave my very best recommendations. We don't need everyone to agree, but we need people to trust that we stand for something, okay? What about your patient greetings with your CAs at the front desk there as well, okay? What happens when someone walks through the door? Is there a warm smile from a CA who greets them by name, or is it whatever happens, happens? Your front desk is really the first adjustment of the visit. It's the moment there that really sets the tone. And if it's different every time, if it's sometimes warm, if it's sometimes cold, if it's sometimes distracted, then trust becomes nothing more than a coin toss, okay? Bruce Springsteen doesn't have to go hard every night, but he does. And because of that, people believe in him. In your practice, consistency is not about perfection, but it is about presence, okay? It is about being someone that your community knows they can count on Monday mornings, Friday afternoons, and everywhere in between, because when people trust your rhythm, they'll trust your recommendations as well, okay? Let's go on to trust builder number 3, and this is authenticity. I know I've spoken about this lots of different times on the podcast, and I want to talk about it again here, okay? When most people hear the word authenticity, they think things like be real, be yourself, say what you feel, and sure, those are all parts of it, but in practice, true authenticity is much deeper than that. It's not just saying what's on your mind. In fact, often it's not saying what's on your mind. It's about aligning how you work and how you speak and how you serve with who you really are, not who you think you should be. Now, here's the hard part. That can be incredibly difficult in a profession where we're trained to model our mentors, okay? We follow systems and we conform to expectations, whether these be our university lecturers or whether they be our coaches as well. Now, Iain McGilchrist, the psychologist and brain expert as well, he talks about in his work, he has a book called The Master and the Emissary, and I'm working my way through it now. It's a behemoth of a book, and I can go pages and realize I haven't understood a word that he said. But in essence, he explores the two different hemispheres in the brain, okay? Not in a cartoonish sense of, right brain is creative and left brain is logic. He goes into a much deeper and more profound kind of way. The left hemisphere narrows in, it analyzes, it categorizes, it wants to know and control. The right hemisphere opens up, it feels, it relates, it seeks context and meaning. Now, McGilchrist says, when we've created a culture, or he goes on, that we've created a culture that's dominated by left brain, a world of protocols, certainty and performance. But meaning, connection and presence, these all live in the right brain, okay? This is where authenticity lives too. It's a right brain function. And when you let the right brain lead, something really, really beautiful happens. You stop trying to be the chiropractor that you think you should be, and you start being the chiropractor that you were always meant to be. Practice is easier, it's more enjoyable, it's more impactful, it's more incomeful. That's not a word, but I think you know what I mean there as well. All of this happens when we step into the right brain. So trust is built when we work from authentic alignment. Let me make it real, okay? For an example, when you work the hours that best support your energy, not just what's expected of you. When you use the techniques that resonate with your hands, your intuition and your training, not necessarily the most flashiest or the most popular, then you adjust with more power, okay? When you communicate in the style that feels natural, whether that's structured or storytelling or casual or scientific, your message is going to land much more deeply. Trust is built when there's no gap between who you are and how you show up, okay? But authenticity, here's another important. It needs tempering, okay? This is the other side of the coin and it's important. Authenticity doesn't mean that we reject feedback. I see this all the time there as well. It doesn't mean that you post your unfiltered thoughts and say, well, that's just who I am. Okay, true authenticity also means growth. It says, this is who I am, and I'm committed to becoming the best version of that person for the people that I serve, okay? Authenticity is a journey. It's growth. It's not about ignoring coaching. It's about filtering advice through your values, though, okay? It's not about resisting structure. It's about building structure that reflects your soul. These are key things. So if your coach gives you a script or your CA gives you feedback, okay, or your metrics show that something is off, this is not a threat to your authenticity. It's an opportunity for you to continue to refine your authenticity, okay? This podcast, some 440 episodes into it, is a constant evolution of my authenticity. I want to be more me each and every week. And what was authentic for me 2 years ago is not authentically for me now as well. So here's some closing thoughts as well. Authenticity isn't a vibe, okay? It's an alignment between your heart, between your actions, and between your service, okay? Let me say that again. Authenticity isn't a vibe. It's an alignment between your heart, your actions, and your service. And when people feel that alignment, whether it's online, whether it's in your hands, or whether it's in your eyes as you walk in the adjusting room, they'll trust it, okay? Because it's incredibly rare and it's powerfully real. So let's go on to trust builder number 4, and this is expertise and knowledge, okay? This is a strange paradox in the world right now because I don't know if you've noticed this, but everybody's an expert and nobody trusts them, okay? You've probably noticed online a 6-week personal training course and suddenly someone's a biomechanics guru, a 30-day life coaching certification, and now you're treating anxiety, depression, and childhood trauma on Instagram live as well. We're drowning in opinions, but we're starving for wisdom, okay? In a world of noise, real expertise is one of the last currencies that still commands trust, okay? But here's the key. It's not just enough to have a degree up on the wall. You've got to have the goods to back it up, okay? Your degree is the starting line, not the finish line. Graduating from chiropractic school gives you the right to step into the arena, but it doesn't guarantee that you're relevant or trustworthy, okay? The question is, Are you still learning? Are you still evolving? Okay. Are you building depth, not just experience? Because your community will absolutely feel it. When you speak from mastery, it just lands differently. Okay. It's not about being louder. It's not about being fancier. It is about being clearer and cleaner and truer. Okay. So it's about staying sharp as well. If you're not regularly consuming information that stretches you, that challenges you, that clarifies your understanding, then you're slowly becoming less helpful, which means you're eroding trust, okay? So let's get real with this. When was the last time that you did CPD that actually excited you, as opposed to just doing it to tick it off as well? When was the last time that you read research on subluxation and the nerve system? And are you aware of how chiropractic paradigm is gaining trust in the broader wellness conversation, okay? Are you looking at the nuanced work that is coming out as well? Now, we've got some phenomenal thinkers in our profession that are simplifying all of this. In the pediatric world, I just still love everything that Dr. Tony Ebel does. We've got Dr. Mo, who's translating neuroscience into practical communication. James Chestnut connecting lifestyle, inflammation, neurology. You know, Dr. Dan Murphy there, he's a walking encyclopedia of neurology and subluxation science. These are just some of my favorites, and there's several others out there, okay? If you're not tuning into these voices and other voices like them, you're missing a wave that's building right now. Trust me, there is a wave for those chiropractors that can communicate and deliver on the science of subluxation and stress on the nervous system. Now is our time, but we need to have the skills. We need to be able to back it up. Trust doesn't just come from knowing what worked in 2004, okay? It comes from knowing what works now. And yes, there are principles in chiropractic that are true all the way through, but we want to evolve. And if you're not evolving, then you're falling behind. So what are you doing to feed your mind? Is it podcast, books, coaching, conversations that stretch you? These aren't luxuries. These should be your tools of the trade. Now, obviously, if you listen to this, you're listening to a podcast, and hopefully there's others that you're listening to as well. If you want to be trusted as a thought leader in your community, you need to sound like somebody who thinks deeply, not just sound like somebody that thinks deeply. You need to be somebody that thinks deeply. Now, you don't need to be the smartest voice in the room, but you need to be somebody who's actively sharpening the sword, okay? The goal is for you to be a better version of yourself next year than you are now. So here's a closing thought. There's a lot of talk about being confident as a chiropractor, but confidence without competence is a dangerous game. Let me say that again. There's a lot of talk about being confident as a chiropractor, but if you're confident without the competence, if you can't back up the confidence, then that's a dangerous game. Real confidence, the kind that creates trust, is born from knowing your stuff, okay? Not from memorizing a script, not from mimicking a mentor, but it comes from deep integrated understandings of the body, of the nerve system, of philosophy, and of all that underpins all the amazing stuff that we do, okay? If you're still learning, if you're still refining, if you're still growing, your patients will feel it, okay? And they'll trust you for it. It's another sign of vulnerability that says, I'm still learning. I haven't got all of this sorted, okay? So this is what we need to make sure that we're doing from here. So let's move now on to trust builder number 5, and this is confidence, okay? Now, you've probably heard a story like this before. A brilliant chiropractor, incredibly sharp, educated, deeply committed, who still holds back. They hesitate during their recommendations. They downplay their skills. They look for others' permissions before they act. It's not a lack of knowledge. It's not a lack of caring. It's a lack of confidence. And I see these people, brilliant chiropractors, inside a community influence all the time. They have all of the skills other than confidence, okay? Now, I'm not talking about kind of puffed up bravado or charisma. I mean self-esteem, the deep internal sense of worthiness that says, I have something valuable to offer, my work matters, and I'm enough, okay? I'm going to say that again. In self-esteem I'm talking about here is a deep internal sense of worthiness that says, I have something valuable to offer, my work matters, and I am enough. Now, I learned a lot of this stuff from Nathaniel Branden and the psychology of self-esteem. And in his groundbreaking work, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, he goes on to define self-esteem as the reputation that we acquire with ourselves. Not with the public, not with our followers, but with ourselves. That reputation isn't built through results alone. It's built through the choices that we make when no one's watching. I mean, do you follow through on your own standards? Do you honor what values that you have? Do you show up even when you're scared? Confidence is not about the absence of fear. It's trust even in the face of it as well, okay? This is what often shows up as imposter syndrome as well. Now, here's a curveball. Because the research on imposter syndrome shows that you're much more likely to experience imposter syndrome when you're more competent, okay? Why? Because the more that you know, the more we realize you don't know. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect in reverse, okay? Those that know little often overestimate themselves, and those that know much often underestimate themselves. And so if you are feeling a sense of imposter syndrome, and that's what's holding you back from your confidence there too, know that you're just normal. You're human, okay? So if you've ever thought that, who am I to be teaching this? Do I really know, or can I back up these recommendations? Or what if they ask a question that I can't answer? Just know you're not broken, you're aware. But that awareness is something that we don't want to shrink away from. We want to use that to strengthen us, and we want to use it to build up, okay? I want to share with you some evidence-based steps here to help you build confidence that lasts as well, because none of this matters if we don't have the confidence as well. And the first one is to keep the promises that you make to yourself. This is straight out of Nathaniel Branden's work as well, okay? Confidence grows when you consistently follow through, especially when no one else is watching. So if you're going to say that you're going to film that video, then film it, okay? That's a deposit. If you plan to leave work at 6 and you actually leave, that's another deposit. And every time that you act with integrity, you reinforce that you can be trusted by you. It builds confidence, okay? We want to stack competence with conscious practice. What do I mean by this? Confidence follows competence, okay? But only when you're conscious of it. So don't just adjust. Reflect on what really went well. Don't just attend a seminar. Take time afterwards to write down what you learned and how you're going to use it as well. Tracking progress creates evidence that your nervous system can rely on when the doubts start to creep in, okay? Speak your values aloud there as well. One of the quickest ways to feel more solid in yourself is to articulate what you truly believe in and why it matters, okay? So you could try some things like this. In my practice, we believe in proactive family wellness care because, okay? Write it, say it, post it, repeat it, okay? The clearer your values, the more anchored and more confident you will become as well. It's important who we surround ourselves with because confidence is easier to access when you're not surrounded by critics or by cynics or by small thinkers. Who are your friends? Who are the people that you're spending most of your time with? Find a community, a coaching, colleagues, team where growth is normalized, okay, not mocked, where vulnerability is respected, okay, not exploited as well. And fifth and final here, you've got to celebrate progress, not just outcomes. Your brain needs reference points for growth, okay? If you only celebrate hitting big milestones, you're starving yourself of self-esteem. Each and every day you're doing little things that deserve to be celebrated, okay? Again, did you have a tough conversation with a staff member that you've been avoiding? If you have, then celebrate that. Did you post a video even though you felt nervous? Celebrate that. These micro wins are things for you to be proud of as well. So here's a closing thought there too. Confidence is not something that you're born with, okay? It's something that you build. It's the natural result of alignment, of action, of awareness. Now, you might not feel ready every time that you recommend care, post content, or take a stand, but when you trust yourself, when you've built that quiet internal reputation, you won't need to feel ready. You'll just be. So let's land this plane. We're living in a time where trust is in short supply. Every day, your patients are bombarded with conflicting advice, self-declared experts, and marketing that overpromises and underdelivers. And in that environment, trust isn't just nice to have, it is your most valuable asset because when people trust you, they'll follow your recommendations, they'll refer their friends, they'll stay with you, not just for a few visits, they'll stay with you for life. Here's what builds trust. Remember, vulnerability. Let people see your heart, not just your highlight reel. Consistency. Be the same person on Monday morning as you are on Friday afternoon, okay? Authenticity. Find your voice. Align your hours, your technique, your communication styles with who you really are. Expertise and knowledge. Stay sharp, keep learning, and be able to explain not just what you do, but why it really matters. And finally, it's confidence or self-esteem. Build that inner reputation that says, I can trust myself. So here's some things to try this week. Pick one area where you've been holding back from sharing your full voice and show up there. Show up a little bit more of you, okay? Audit your consistency. Is there a gap between how you show up and what you do? Okay, in terms of, is there a gap in terms of how you show up at the start of the week versus the end of the week? Schedule one action that sharpens your expertise. Again, is it listening to a podcast? Is it reading a book? Is it taking a course? Any of those things there that matter as well. Choose one promise to yourself to keep this week, okay? And watch what that does to your confidence as well. And remember, trust isn't built through big gestures, okay? It's built through micro moments. The tone of your greeting, the clarity of your recommendations, and the way that you connect, even when you feel tired. Be the chiropractor that your community can count on, not because you're perfect, but because you're real, you're present, and you keep showing up. All right, folks, thanks for joining me today. If this episode landed for you, I'd love to know. Share it with a colleague, a friend as well. And don't forget to check out episode 422, where I do a much deeper dive into authenticity. Until next time, folks, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. See you soon. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.